guess I didn't see him. What are you looking so sad about, Jack?
I'm surprised at you. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, one time during my career, I was on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
What's happening, my people? It's Cass Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right, you know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Salute to Miss Cass, because without her, none of this would be possible. Salute to Mike Masick, Al Booger, the legendary Thomas Hill. Salute to everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, the most over and underrated boxers of all time has the family today. Yes, we're going to look at some over and underrated fighters today. That's going to be the show. Like that thumbnail was on the strength of Juan Manuel Marquez, one of the most underrated fighters of all time. In his era, he was one of the GOATs. 2000s, early 2000s through like 2015, somewhere around in there, yeah. Juan Manuel was one of the GOATs. Yeah. One of the four kings of the 2000s. Marco Antonio Barrera, Manny Pacquiao, Erik Morales, and Juan Manuel Marquez. And they fought. All of them fought, except one combination. Morales and Marquez never fought, but they had 13 fights in all, more than the original Four Kings. The original Four Kings had 9 fights between them. These four, Marquez and company, had 13 fights. Only fight that didn't happen was Marquez and Morales. They had a nice back and forth after they retired, blaming it on each other. I think Morales came out and said Marquez ducked him. And then Marquez came back. We're going to have to go over that one day. You had a nice little back and forth after their careers, blaming each other as to why they were the only combination of the Four Kings of the 2000s that never met. But the most over and underrated boxers of all time. This is the Hump Day edition of Cash Sports, the Boxtorian. Now tomorrow, we're going to have history of boxing, history of the World Boxing Council, WBC. We're going to get back to the sanctioning bodies. And Friday, the profile is the life and career of Frank Bruno, British boxer. Frank broke the British people's hearts for a lot of years, but he finally got a title. Yep, I think he finally got the WBC. And, you know, they hadn't had a champion from Great Britain since the 1800s, Bob Fitzsimmons, and they thought Frank was going to be the man, but he kept coming close and kept breaking their hearts, but he finally got it. Had a great fight with Iron Mike Tyson when he was Iron Mike Tyson. Frank gave him a good fight. So we're going to talk about Frank Friday. But now, let's get into our fight of the day, so we can get into these over and underrated fighters. So without further ado, today's fight of the day. Today's fight of the day is Juan Manuel Marquez versus Marco Antonio Barrera. March 17th, 2007. An all-Mexican classic. An all-Mexican classic. Marquez Barrera. March 17th, 2007. An all-Mexican classic. After waiting all those years, Juan Manuel Marquez finally sees the perfect opportunity for boxing greatness as he beat Mexican ring icon Marco Antonio Barrera in their 12-round thriller. The man called Dinamita showed why he was avoided by great fighters early in his career with this awesome performance against the babyface assassin, Marco Antonio Barrera. The fight definitely lived up to expectations, as both fighters showed true Mexican pride in the ring. But it was Marquez who got the better of the two by winning by a seriously tough unanimous decision. Two judges had it 116-111, and the third judge had it 118-109. I don't know what fight he was watching. 118-109 was crazy. But all were in favor of the challenger, Marquez. The win earned him his third world title in 2 divisions. It came in, Barrera was the champion. Marquez became a 3-division world champion. 2-division world champion, but it was his third title. 3-time champion in 2 different divisions. Now, the Fight of the Year candidate started with a bang, as both fighters traded punches in the middle of the ring, with Marquez slightly getting the better of the exchanges. Barrera had a slight edge over the challenger Marquez during the course of the second round, all the way up to the sixth round, with his crisp left jab and effective flurries to steal most of those rounds, second to the sixth, Barrera. During the seventh round, Marquez caught Barrera with a clean right hand that completely staggered the champion. After smelling blood, Marquez assaulted the stunned Barrera with vicious combinations to head and body. When Marquez appeared to be cruising to a great round, the stunned Barrera suddenly caught the assaulting Marquez with a perfect counter right hand that floored Dinamita. He had put Marquez on the mat. But the supposed to be knockdown scored by Barrera was disregarded by referee Jay Nady after Barrera hit Marquez with another crisp right while Marquez was on his knee. The action by Barrera prompted Nady to deduct the point from Barrera, so that negated his knockdown, right? Took a point from him. Yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, there's Nady over there with Barrera. He just got finished hitting Marquez while he was down on one knee. So Nady took a point from Barrera. After the ecstatic seventh round, Marquez began to control the fight by beating Barrera to the punch. The former featherweight champion began to unleash tremendous shots that stymied Barrera. His much crisper punches and tremendous uppercuts landed with much better conviction than Barrera's shots. During the final round, both fighters turned on the jets and began to exchange in the middle of the ring, but it was Marquez who appeared to be slightly more aggressive than Barrera and got the better of the exchanges. Yes, Marquez appeared to be getting the better of the exchanges in the final round. Marquez's accuracy and effective power punching was the decisive factor in the fight, as he demonstrated it to Barrera. Those factors got him the much-deserved decision that finally solidified his name as one of the greatest fighters in Mexican history. Now, both fighters' faces showed how tough of a fight it was, with both of their faces being swollen and bloodied. And they both showed what boxing is all about and what it should be. Now, this defining victory for Marquez opened the gates for big fights, particularly a rematch against Manny Pacquiao. But with legal battles of Top Rank and Golden Boy promotions over Pacquiao's going on at the time, this much anticipated rematch had to wait a while longer. Marquez and Pacquiao had only had one fight at that point. And Pacquiao was going through some legal battles with Golden Boy and Top Rank, so that delayed the rematch for a while. And Marquez had to settle for a fight against WBO champion Juan Little Tyson Guzman or WBA champion Edwin Inca Valero. As for the legendary Marco Antonio Barrera, he was perhaps in the twilight of his career. But after the performance against Marquez, people started to have second thoughts of Barrera being a worn-out fighter. He still had a punch that could turn a fighter around, and he proved once again that he could still bang against one of the hardest punchers in boxing. And to sum it all up, it was a tremendous fight with both fighters laying it all on the line in the ring, just for pride and honor. Now, a rematch between the two was likely at the time, but it never materialized. Never got those two in the ring again. Yep. But it was simply a great night for boxing. Marquez and Barrera. A great night for boxing that was. Okay, and that was the fight of the day, won by Juan Manuel Marquez. So now let's look at some of these over and underrated fighters. Okay, we're gonna look at underrated first. Underrated fighters first. Okay. We'll look at some underrated fighters from boxing history. All former fighters. That's what we're doing today. The most over and underrated boxers of all time today. Yeah, Juan Manuel, one of the most underrated of all time, I think. Okay, let's get started. Looking at these fighters. But how's everybody? It's hump day. On downhill, this is fight week for Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. And I'm thinking that Keyshawn and Jermaine Ortiz fight, that might be the fight of the night right there. I like that one. That's good matchmaking there. I'm leaning to Keyshawn, but Jermaine should put up a good battle against him. But Keyshawn will probably pull it out. You know, skills pay the bills. And Keyshawn is clearly the more skillful fighter, but hey, Jermaine got some skills too now. Look at the tough fight he gave Loma. So yeah. And Loma was way more experienced than Keyshawn at the point when he fought Jermaine. But Jermaine was Loma's former sparring partner, so that probably played into it. He knew Loma, but no, Loma knew him too. So you got to give Jermaine his credit. But I'm just saying that might be the fight of the night. Keyshawn and Jermaine. And then we got Xander Zayas in action this weekend and Virgil Taliev or something like that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. He's in action this weekend too. 3 big cards. I think Gary Antoine Russell is on one of those cards. Fighting a mandatory this weekend, I believe. Yeah, Gary Antoine is. I can't pronounce it, but I can spell it. Yeah, he's in action this weekend too. I forgot who he was fighting. But let's look at these underrated fighters. We're going to start out. Now, some of these might be surprises, but underrated, some of the most underrated fighters of all time. We're going to start out with Smoking Joe Frazier. Smoking Joe Frazier. Now, we shouldn't forget that Joe Frazier only lost to 2 fighters in his entire career. Lost to both of them twice. And they were both all-time greats. Muhammad Ali and Big George Foreman. And Frazier fought in the golden age of heavyweights and only lost to 2 fighters. Big George and the greatest of them all, Muhammad Ali, right? Smoking Joe Frazier had signature wins over Ali, Jerry Corey twice, Jimmy Ellis twice, Oscar Bonavena twice, and George Chuvalo. Frazier beat Ali once and took him to the limit the other 2 times they fought. In any other era, Smoking Joe might have been the undisputed heavyweight champion for a long reign and possibly undefeated, okay? But most people remember Joe Frazier as the B-side in the Muhammad Ali trilogy. That's why he's so underrated. Because when you mention Smoking Joe, the first thing people think of, he was the B-side in the Ali trilogy. Yep, Smoking Joe Frazier. Now here's another one I think is underrated. Y'all might not agree with this one. The Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran. Azim Shabazz in the building. What's up, Azim? Good to see you again, my brother. We're looking at some undefeated fighters today, Azim. Yes, Joe Frazier, very underrated. Only lost to 2 fighters in his career. Ali and Foreman. And you know, when you think of Frazier, first thing people say, oh, he was the B-side in the Ali trilogy. But he was way more than that. But that's what he's remembered as, especially fans that were not around in that era. Yep. And that's very unfair. That's why I had Joe Frazier on here. The salute, Azim. Next is Roberto Duran. Yeah, I thought he was underrated. Now, Roberto Duran was arguably the greatest lightweight of all time. He only lost when he was older and had moved up in weight class to fight men who were way bigger, stronger, and younger than Roberto was. Now, Duran is a top 10 pound-for-pound boxer of all time. When Duran won his first fight with Sugar Ray Leonard, his record was 72 wins and 1 loss. And he had avenged that only loss to Esteban de Jesus, who's also on this list as being underrated. And he avenged that loss to Esteban with 2 knockout victories. Roberto Duran. He lost most of his fights later in his career when he should have been out of the ring against bigger, stronger, and younger fighters. Roberto Duran. Chico Vihar. Going back a ways for Chico. There's Chico. Now, Chico Vihar had a record of 92 wins, 20 losses, 4 draws. He fought in that era, the 100th fight era. He was a popular boxer who fought some of the best-known welterweights and middleweights of his era, including champions like 40s, 50s, Kid Gavilan, Gene Fullmer, Joey Giardello, Tiger Johnson, and Tony DeMarco. How popular? Chico Vihar was served up as much on Friday nights as fish was, according to Bert Sugar, the boxing historian and writer. Vihar was also known for his good work outside the ring, such as putting on fundraisers for cerebral palsy, a disease that afflicted his son. Chico was suggested, cerebral palsy. He did exhibitions and fundraisers for that disease, and it afflicted his son. And this is how underrated he is. When I'm always talking about those great 50s middleweights, which Chico was one, I never mentioned him. I'm always talking about Gene Fullmer, Joey Giardello, Sugar Ray Robinson. And they had wins against Gene Fullmer and Joey Giardello. So yeah, Chico is very underrated. Yaqui Lopez, from the era, greatest era of light heavyweights ever. Yaqui Lopez, 80s, late 70s into the 80s. Yaqui Lopez was born under a famous bull ring in Mexico. He grew up underneath the seats of the bull ring in an adobe garage, dreaming of becoming a famous matador. But in his very first bullfight as a teenage matador, a bull drove his horns into Yaqui's ankle and shattered it. Yaqui decided not to pursue becoming a bullfighter after that. I don't blame him. And opted for a slightly less risky occupation, being a boxer. He became a light heavyweight contender and had 2 great fights with Matthew Saad Muhammad. He also fought Michael Spinks, but succumbed to the Spinks jinx late in the fight. And Lopez finished his boxing career with 61 wins, 15 losses, and legions of appreciative fans. Yaqui Lopez was definitely underrated. Yes, he was. Okay, who's next? That's Vince Martinez. Now, Vince Martinez had a pro record of 68 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws, with 36 knockouts. And signature wins over. Again, Kid Gavilan twice. He beat Chico, who we just talked about, and Art Aragon. Yep, Vince Martinez. Okay. Michael Spinks was underrated. kind of similar to Joe Frazier. Because, you know, when you mention Michael Spinks, they don't think about the best light heavyweight in the best era of light heavyweights. First thing they think about, oh, he got knocked up by Mike Tyson in 91 seconds. Yeah, but Michael Spinks was way more than that. Yeah, but that's what, you know, most people say. Yeah, he was in the 91 second fight. I can't help it, but that's the first thing I think of sometimes when Michael Spinks come to mind. But he was way more than that. Yeah, Michael Spinks. Let's talk about it. The general public often remembers a fighter by his last performance. And the image on the screen is Michael Spinks being flattened by a rampaging Iron Mike Tyson. And that's when he was Iron Mike Tyson. And that image has become an enduring image over the years of Michael Spinks. Now, the amount of unfair criticism that Michael Spinks has attracted because of his last pro outing has severely tarnished his overall career standing. Many casual fans often forget that this guy was in fact a very slick boxer who is generally rated as the #1 light heavyweight of all time. And in an era, the best era of light heavyweights, like 70s, 80s, Michael Spinks was the king. And in addition to this fact, casuals also forget that on paper at least, Spinks was actually a live dog in this highly anticipated clash against Tyson. But obviously, on the night, fear took hold of Spinks, and the rest is history. Yeah, Emmanuel Stewart said he went into the dressing room before that fight, and said Michael Spinks was scared to come out. They had to coax him out of the dressing room. And the fight started late. They said it was damn near going on 12 o'clock before Spinks came out for the main event. Tim Weatherspoon, talk about some underrated boxers. That's Tim against Larry Holmes. A lot of people thought Tim won that fight, actually. Tim Weatherspoon, Turbo Tim. Now, the guy on the right was a very capable boxer and held his own against the best heavyweights of the 1980s. Way back in the early 1980s, he gave Larry Holmes all the trouble he could handle and was most probably robbed of a points victory. On that particular night, both the judges and boxing politics went against Turbo Tim Weatherspoon. Although he held a version of the heavyweight crown, he was never really regarded as a proper heavyweight champion and never became a household name. Weatherspoon was also a member of a group of 1980s heavyweights who suffered heavily under the management of a certain guy named Don King. If Weatherspoon had a different manager / promoter than King, it is quite likely that his career would have taken a very different path. Yep, got caught up in the Don King situation. Another underrated fighter, the Big Bear, Sonny Liston. Yep, way underrated, the Big Bear. Now, while Sonny Liston is notorious for being the most feared boxer in history, his actual boxing abilities are overshadowed by his looming and fearsome persona. This guy could really box and had one of the best jabs in heavyweight history. Liston's overall boxing legacy has been tarnished by his two infamous failures against Ali. Many boxing historians have been particularly unkind to Liston because in the second Ali fight, it is widely believed that he took a dive as part of a mob-controlled betting fix. The Big Bear, Sonny Liston, very underrated. Those two Ali fights really tarnished Sonny's legacy. Jimmy Young. That's Jimmy on the right, fighting Big George Foreman. You mentioned a golden era slickster named Jimmy Young. And most casual fans will say, who? What? Who you talking about? Jimmy Young not only had the guts to take on 1970s Big George Foreman, but also outboxed him and won on a clear points decision. Okay? He won the fight against Foreman. Jimmy Young also fought Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton during that glorious era in heavyweight history. Jimmy Young is a strong candidate for the title of slipperiest heavyweight of the 1970s. This guy could genuinely box, and yet he's an almost forgotten name as far as the mainstream media is concerned. Yep, Jimmy Young. Bad man. Beat Big George. Yes, he did. Prime Big George. When he was laying, but that was after Ali took that intimidation factor from after Ali beat him. Wasn't nobody scared of Big George no more after that. Sort of like after Buster Douglas beat Tyson. Well, Big George ain't invincible. Ali did not only beat him, knocked him out. Okay, next underrated boxer is Ike Iwabuchi. He went to prison and all that. He said he was going to fight. He's out, but somebody said he had a fight recently. But Iwabuchi had a fearsome physique and could also box. He had the potential to have gone on to great things. For one reason or another, his boxing career stalled, and it was all over before it ever began. He was 20-0 when he went to prison. He is most remembered for taming a seemingly mighty David Tua back in 1997. Yeah, Iwabuchi was 20-0. You know, when things came crashing down on him. I think when he had sexual assault or something like that. Yeah. I think that was the charge Ike had. Yeah, but he's out. And he was talking about when he get out, he coming back to the ring. Probably like 50-something. Fight Jake Paul. That's what everybody else do, right? After that, AJ broke that jaw. I don't know what. Jake might not get back in the ring. Okay, let's look at some more underrated boxers. Now, how's everybody? It's Wednesday, the hump day. We got the we're gonna look at the WBC World Boxing Council tomorrow. And Friday, Frank Bruno. Yeah. From Great Britain. Life and career of Frank Bruno. Okay, who's the next one? We're going back a ways now. Bob Fitzsimmons. Yeah, he was the last British champion when Bruno came around, and Fitzsimmons was way back in the late 1800s or late 19th century. Bob Fitzsimmons, okay, is the next one. The Bob Fitzsimmons has an official box record of 65 wins, 8 losses, 4 draws, and 59 knockouts. Not a bad rate, okay? But with a pro career that began during the 1880s, there's no way to really know for sure how many fights he fought and when, right? That's what Bachrach has officially, but probably had more fights. The record keeping was very sketchy. But what is a matter of historical record is that he was the first man to hold world titles in 3 weight divisions, okay? Middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. And prior to Roy Jones, excuse me for a minute. Okay, prior to Roy Jones beating John Ruiz for the WBA strap in March of 2003. Fitzsimmons was the only middleweight champion ever to go all the way up and take the world title from one of the big boys. Before Roy did it, Fitzsimmons was the only one. And now it's Fitzsimmons, Roy Jones, and Clarissa Shields. Only 3 fighters to ever win a middleweight title and a heavyweight title. Yeah, Clarissa Shields did it. Yep. Now you rarely see Fitzsimmons' name high up on pound for pound list. It's just too hard to know what to do with a fighter who fought in a radically different era and often under an older, much different set of rules. But there's no doubt that during the height of his career, Bob Fitzsimmons routinely beat the biggest and best opponents in his era. Little Chocolate, George Dixon, talking about some underrated fighters. Little Chocolate, there's Little Chocolate, George Dixon. Okay, let's excuse me for a minute. Got something here. One memento. Okay, be right back in 2 minutes. Switching up on the equipment here. Yeah, the next one is George Dixon. He was a Canadian boxer. First black athlete to win a world championship in any sport. Okay? George Dixon, Little Chocolate. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, I think this is gonna work out okay. Little Chocolate, George Dixon. Okay. There we go. Couldn't see the chat momentarily. That's all good. We're back. Okay, let's go. Little Chocolate, George Dixon. Underrated fighters. Now, the official record for George Dixon is 65 wins, 29 losses, 52 knockouts. And he also fought back around the time of Bob Fitzsimmons. So fighters from Dixon's era are still part folk hero. And most likely, Dixon earned at least part of his living doing tours and performing exhibition matches. We had a lot more fights. There's been estimates that Dixon had up to 800 total fights during his career. 800. Dixon was highly regarded by writers and fans of his era. And Ring founder Ned Fleischer ranked George Dixon as the #1 bantamweight of all time. Ring magazine founder Ned Fleischer. This excellent biography on Kurt Cox's Corner gave a bunch of cited quotations. It makes Dixon sound like a potential top 5 of all time. Okay? The way some people talk about George Dixon. The Old Master, Joe Gans, some underrated fighters. The Old Master, Joe Gans. There's the Old Master from Baltimore, Maryland. Now, Joe Gans' official record was 145 wins, 10 losses. Okay? No. Yeah. and 16 draws, 10 losses, 16 draws, and 100 knockouts. He's in the 100 knockout club. Okay, the old master. But probably had more fights because he fought around that same time. Fritz Simmons and Little Chocolate. That's why they underrated, because they probably had way more fights than people think. On September 2nd, 1906, Gans beat Batley Nelson by disqualification after 42 rounds. And remember, he broke his arm in the 34th round and fought the last 8 rounds with a broken arm and still won the fight. Now, Gans was the world lightweight champion for much of the first decade of the 20th century. He once fought the very tough Dave Holly in Philadelphia, then took an overnight train to Boston and battled fellow immortal Sam Langford the very next day. Contemporary descriptions make Gans sound like another fighter who has to get serious consideration for the top 5 of all time. He fought the last 2 years of his career after being diagnosed with tuberculosis. Very underrated, Joe Gans. And then the great Harry Greb, the Pittsburgh Windmill. There he is. There's Harry. The Pittsburgh Windmill, Harry Greb. Okay. Fix that. I don't have the chat lined up. Gotta be able to see the chat. That's the most important part. There we go. Okay. There we go. Yeah. All right, yeah. There we go. Okay. Harry Greb, the great Harry Greb. The box rec has Harry Greb's newspaper decisions, right? 157 wins, 12 losses. It is believed by most boxing historians that he may have had around 300 fights total. Like Joe Gans from right before him, Greb gets his share of top 5 all-time run from boxing writers who give a high evaluation to his era, but there's virtually no existing footage of him, and he often gets overlooked in conversations that attempt to compare fighters across eras. He is unquestionably on the short list with Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Carlos Monzon for the greatest middleweights ever. His pound-for-pound credibility is beyond reproach. Harry Greb handed future heavyweight champion Gene Tunney the only loss of his career. Tiger Flowers. Very underrated. Tiger Flowers. Azim says, Jimmy Young. What's up, Bruce Gas? Salute. Yeah, Jimmy Young should definitely be in there, Bruce. Man, that's crazy. Okay. Bruce says, Ibuki got out of jail, had a win, and lost his last fight. 1-1. But salute Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more. Yeah. Bruce came in when the chat was all messed up. That's why I had to get out for. I had to get the chat together. Got to be able to see the chat. Missed all that good information Bruce gave. Yeah. Ibuki, I thought he had fought when he got out of jail. He went 1-1. Okay. That was his last fight. And Azim is talking about Jimmy Young. Azim says Jimmy Young taught him how to fight. Wow. And Bruce says Jimmy should be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. I don't know. That's crazy. Jimmy Young's slip game was awesome. Man, if I didn't know no better, I would think Jimmy was in there, but he's not. That's crazy. But Tiger Flowers, 3 wins, 15 losses, 7 draws. Now Tiger Flowers was the first Black American middleweight champion, earning the crown by defeating the great Harry Greb. And Tiger Flowers is another fighter that gets overlooked due to the passage of time, okay? This well thought out list has Tiger Flowers number 10 with a good discussion of why he is not higher, citing his 10 losses by stoppage. Still, Tiger also seems to have lost some fights by questionable decision, a common problem faced by Black fighters in his era. Ultimately, like many of the old-time fighters, writers and fans alike ultimately underrate Tiger, at least a little bit, because of the passage of time. Sam Langford, he is thought to be the best fighter that never won a championship, Sam Langford. To the serious boxing fan, Sam Langford is probably not underrated. He appears high on pound-for-pound lists written by knowledgeable historians. And even though he started his career at welterweight, he ranks high on a list of all-time heavyweight greats. In the 1968 Ring Record Book, historian Charlie Rhodes ranked Sam Langford as the top heavyweight of all time. But due to the racism of his time, Langford never got the chance to fight for a world title. For this reason alone, the passage of time has ensured that Langford has something less than the kind of status he truly deserves, because he shows up on no list of champions. This causes him to be vastly underrated among more casual and or younger fans, because they were world heavyweight champions. People knew names like Max Baer, Jack Sharkey, and their names were there to be read in countless books and sports almanacs. It was not until much later that Langford was discovered, even though he was the far greater fighter than those guys. That makes him underrated. Sam Langford. Okay, next. Sam McVeigh. I hate this site. And it won't move. Sam McVeigh is next, though. And we're going to get to some overrated fighters, too. These are the underrated. Overrated's coming up. And we're going to go into detail on Michael Spinks. Bear with me, please. Okay, I should have just left that where it was at in the first place. But Sam McVeigh is next on the underrated fighters. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Sam McVeigh. Talking about some of the most overrated fighters in boxing history. Sam McVeigh. Okay, here we go with Sam. That's Sam up there. Now, Sam McVeigh, 62 wins, 12 losses. He was a contemporary of Sam Langford. Likewise, shut out of many opportunities because of his race. Now, the two Sams fought each other nearly 24 times, often for what was billed as the Color Championship. The Langford had the better record, but McVeigh won his share, and many of their fights were draws. This would absolutely suggest that McVeigh deserves fairly high all-time ranking, but he remains an obscure figure. Harry Wills. Harry Wills. Another fighter who never got a chance to achieve the status he really deserved. Langford. Now, Wills was the recognized #1 contender for Jack Dempsey's during much of the great champion's reign, but in a country still trembling from the career of Jack Johnson, a mixed race fight between the two ultimately proved impossible to set up. Ken Overland. Ken Overland. Talking about some underrated fighters. Ken Overland. Ken on the right there. Ken Overland is largely forgotten now, after a career which included capturing the middleweight title from Seferino Garcia in 1940. Overland's all-time standing is probably hurt in part by his low knockout total, and probably in part due to the fact that his career almost entirely corresponded with first the Depression and then World War II. In that era, prize fighting and all other sports took an understandable hit in the amount of attention they could garner, during the Depression and the war. Unlike a lot of fighters from the old days, Overland was still mostly winning at the end of his career, even taking a decision from an up-and-coming Ezzard Charles. Holman Williams. Crush the legend in the building. We're looking at some over and underrated fighters, Crush. We're looking at underrated right now. Some underrated fighters. But salute, Crush. How are you today? Holman Williams, one of the Murderers Row fighters. Holman Williams. That's Holman. Okay. Now he's another all-time great who never got his shot at a title. Holman Williams was a defensive wizard who was largely avoided by the top welterweights and middleweights of his era. He fought fellow underrated contemporary Charlie Burley 7 times, winning 3 of them. And he also beat the legendary Archie Moore. And speaking of Charlie Burley, he's next. Here's Charlie. Like his rival, Holman Williams, Charlie Burley never had the opportunity to fight for a title. Yep. Experts such as Eddie Futch, Ray Arcel, and Archie Moore have all called Charlie Burley the best fighter ever. And Charlie Burley just might be the most underrated boxer of all time, and quite likely one of the most talented boxers to never win a world title, along with Sam Langford. Would be one of those two, Sam Langford or Charlie Burley, the most talented fighter to never win a world championship. Jimmy Bivens, Mike Grimm, in the building. What's up, Mike Grimm? Over and underrated boxers. Looking at underrated first. Then we're going to get to the overrated fighters. Salute Mike Grimm. Jimmy Bivens. Very underrated. Now, Jimmy Bivens was one of the top light heavyweight and heavyweight contenders during the late 1940s and early 1950s, during the post-war era, when boxing was undergoing a huge resurgence in popularity. Now, although he never managed to win a title, Bivens did record victories over a laundry list of former and future world champions, such as Archie Moore, Ezra Charles, and Joey Maxim. Bivens went the distance with Joe Louis and lost to Jersey Joe Walcott by a split decision. One-on-one judges card. One judge gave it to Bivens over Jersey Joe. You could argue that most of Bivens' contemporaries who rank ahead of him deserve it. But Bivens is a classic example of a guy who was much better than anybody can really appreciate from across the decades. Yeah, the passage of time has hurt him too. Like a lot of these old fighters, the passage of time has really hurt him as far as being underrated. Ezra Charles, Ezra Charles, very underrated. The Cincinnati Cobra started his career as a middleweight, eventually became perhaps the best light heavyweight ever, and never won a title at light heavyweight, still considered perhaps the best light heavyweight ever, and then moved up to heavyweight to finally reign as the world champion in the years between Joe Louis' first retirement and the emergence of Rocky Marciano. Yeah, Ezra was right in between them and fought both of them. Fought both of them. He's a top 20 heavyweight of all time and probably the best light heavyweight ever. And if cruiserweight had existed back then, Ezra Charles probably would have been the best cruiserweight ever too. All of this adds up to a pretty solid pound for pound ranking on anybody's list. But you rarely hear or see Ezra Charles mentioned in those kind of debates. Yep, rarely mentioned, but should be on all of them. Eater Joffre, the best Brazilian fighter of all time. And that's not Eater Joffre. Eater Joffre is next. It is Eater on the right. Okay. Eater Joffre, best Brazilian fighter of all time. Not even a household name. Very underrated. 2-division world champion. And he had 72 wins, just 2 losses, 50 knockouts, beat by the same man, the Fighting Geraldo. Yet, Eater Joffre does not appear high at all on most all-time rankings, not even mentioned. At the same time, his quality of competition can be legitimately criticized. He lost twice to the Fighting Geraldo, the biggest name on his resume. But what can't be denied is that he had a highly successful, exciting style. What most people don't know about Eater is the fact that the most recent issue of the Ring magazine had Eater Joffre as the best fighter you never heard of. If a fighter is most well known for not being very well known, you have to think he is at least a little bit underrated, right? If he's most well known for not being very well known, got to be underrated. Luis Rodriguez. That's Luis on the right. Now, Luis Rodriguez, one of the elite welterweight, and middleweights of the past 50 years. And he only had 2 losses in his career, and they were both by split decision. And his trainer was the legendary Angelo Dundee. Okay? And Angelo Dundee said Rodriguez had quicker hands than Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay? He trained both of them. Dundee was the kind of trainer who loved his fighters like his children. So he may have overstated a tiny bit. But a lot of people that saw Rodriguez thought the exact same thing about him. Luis Rodriguez, Carlos Palomino. No, that's not Manny Pacquiao. That's Carlos Palomino. That resemblance is crazy, ain't it? But that's Carlos Palomino. Not Manny. It could be Manny's father. But Carlos Palomino makes the list. He's a classic case of a very good fighter, overshadowed by greater contemporaries. But he held the welterweight title for 3 years and 7 defenses before he lost a split decision to Wilfredo Benitez. After losing to Benitez, Palomino lost a one-sided unanimous decision to Roberto Duran. And he retired for 18 years before launching a comeback in 1997, during which he compiled a 4-1 record. Got retired for 18 years and came back. And next on the list of underrated fighters is Wilfredo Benitez. But Palomino fought Duran and Benitez. Lost to both of them. Benitez is a very underrated fighter too. Yeah. Now, if Carlos Palomino was a very good fighter, overshadowed by his great contemporaries, Wilfredo Benitez is a great fighter, overshadowed by his slightly greater contemporaries. Yeah, Benitez was right there with the 4 kings. Now, a lot of people say he should be the 5th king, joining Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran. He fought 3 of them. And you can see why he limited it to 4. There's only 4 kings in the deck, right? But Benitez was involved in extremely important, closely fought battles with 3 of those men. Never fought Hagler. He lost by TKO to Sugar Ray Leonard, 15-round stoppage. Criticized often over the years that the referee should have let it go. Yeah, stopped and gave the Sugar Ray the 15th round. But Sugar Ray was getting a lot of favoritism back then. All-American Olympic gold medalist, you know, the story. Yeah. How can you let a man go in the 15-round era? How can you let a man go 15 rounds and then stop the fight on the TKO in the 15th round? Come on, man. You just don't do that. They did the same thing to Hearns, but it was 14th round. Your Sugar Ray got a lot of gifts back in them days. Hearns was winning on all 3 judges' cards, and they stopped it in the 14th round. Now, Benitez was badly cut, but he still seemed more than capable of defending himself through the last seconds of the fight. And they were inside the last minute. I don't know exactly how much time was left. Bruce probably knows, but they were inside the last minute of the 15th round. How do you let a fight go 14 rounds in 2+ minutes and then stop it inside the last minute of the 15th round? Only when your opponent is Sugar Ray Leonard and they want to make sure he wins. That's when that happens. Stop the round in the last minute of the 15th round. Now, Benitez was cut, but he seemed like he was fully capable of continuing. He was a defensive wizard and a boxing prodigy with a track record of hanging tough deep into fights. On his best night, Benitez was a major problem for any fighter between 140 and 154. Alfredo Benitez. Now, Esteban de Jesus. Now, he's not in the Hall of Fame neither. But he had some out-of-the-ring difficulties that I think kept him out. Yeah. He murdered somebody and got life in prison. But out of mercy, he caught AIDS and they let him out so he could die at home with his family. And he only lasted like a month when they let him out of prison. But he still should be in the Hall of Fame. But I think they held that against him. Out-of-the-ring activities. When boxing critics list Roberto Duran as the greatest lightweight in history, part of their judgment is based upon the work he did against Esteban de Jesus. De Jesus gave Duran the first loss of his career and only loss as a lightweight. He knocked Duran down in a rematch before falling to the hands of Stone by TKO in the 11th round, and then Duran knocked de Jesus out in the rubber match. Yeah. And Esteban de Jesus goes a long way to them saying Roberto Duran is the best lightweight of all time for those fights. Only loss at lightweight was to Esteban. The great Ricardo Lopez, Finito. They say he never lost in the amateurs or pros, but I found one loss in the amateurs, so I don't know. One loss in the amateurs and never lost in the pro ranks. 51 wins, no losses, 1 draw, 38 knockouts. And the man he had to draw against, he did avenge that. He did avenge that draw, okay? But in the fight he beat, it still was a split decision. This guy had his number. He even got the nod on one judge's card. So yeah, there's somebody for everybody. Lopez never lost, but that guy had his number. Had a draw and got the nod on one card in the rematch. So yeah. And I can't think of his name. Wow. Okay. Yeah, Ricardo Lopez, Finito. And yeah, he's so underrated because he fought way down at 105, right? And a lot of people still don't know to this day there's a division at 105, right? But it is. So that was his main problem. Finito retired undefeated. He won 26 world title fights, okay? He was a complete and well-rounded fighter who did everything he could to stake his claim to greatness. But since he did it at 105 pounds, he never gets the same consideration that fighters 2 or 3 weight classes north would receive. Now, if he fought like 126, 135, Ricardo Lopez would be a household name like Julio Cesar Chavez, Canelo, Juan Manuel Marquez, Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera, all those great Mexican fighters. Ricardo Lopez would be a household name just like him. Probably better than most of that list as a fighter, but again, he fought at 105. Yep. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he's remembered as an all-time great. But fighting at 105 causes him to be very underrated. Yep, Ricardo Lopez. Yep, that 105 did him in. The Body Snatcher, Mike McCallum, the Body Snatcher. Yeah, he just got a couple more. Then we're gonna look at some overrated fighters. Yeah, he was underrated, the Body Snatcher. And he tried to fight all the 4 kings, but none of them would fight the Body Snatcher. Yep. The Body Snatcher, Mike McCallum, is another great fighter overshadowed by the quartet of the 4 kings, Leonard Hagler Hearns and Duran. Okay, yeah. Fought right smack dab in the middle of that era. But the Body Snatcher would have been a very difficult out at 154 against any fighter in history, including the 4 kings. It's a reason why none of them fought him, okay? It's a valid reason why none of the four kings fought him. Now, he never went to middleweight. Well, he did go to middleweight, but I think that was after Hagler's time. Yeah, because he went up to middleweight like 90s or something. Hagler was gone by then. Now, the body snatcher never lost until he moved up to middleweight and challenged Sambu Kalambe for the WBA belt. This was in the 90s, yeah. And McCallum was never the same dominant force after moving up, but remained one of the elite fighters at that weight into the early 90s. But 154 was his best weight, yeah. That was his best weight. Hagler never fought at 154, but Sugar Ray Hearns, Duran all fought at 154, but they didn't fight the body snatcher at 154. Okay, they did not fight the body snatcher. Very underrated. Buddy McGirt, James Buddy McGirt. B3 Picks TV is in the building. We're talking about some underrated fighters, B3. Got a couple more. Then we're going to talk about some overrated fighters. We got to get some link time now. Yeah, oh yeah, we got good time. It's 3:12. Yeah, we're going to talk about some overrated fighters. Let's salute B3 Picks TV in the building. Now, the next underrated fighter is Buddy McGirt. Yep, Buddy. James Buddy McGirt. He was 73 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw, and he had 48 knockouts. He had a lot of fights, over 80, almost, well, he had 80 fights on the dot. Yeah, Buddy did. Now, Buddy McGirt was a 2-division world champion and one of the most skilled and exciting fighters of the late 1980s and early 90s. At his very best, Buddy only lost to Meldrick Taylor and Pernell Whitaker, 2 of the most elite fighters of that era, okay? Buddy works as a very successful trainer today. Vitaly Klitschko. Yeah, Vitaly was underrated, yeah. Oh, that's Buddy right there. I never changed. That's the body snatcher, right? There's Buddy McGirt. There's Vitaly Klitschko. Right there. Yeah, Vitaly was underrated too. Now you can make an argument for the younger brother Vladimir too, right? But some of the criticism of Vladimir is justified. He was knocked out by substandard opponents, and his safety first approach to boxing at times lulls American audiences to sleep. The fact that Vladimir picked a 40-year-old cruiserweight for his last opponent left a lot of people feeling less than generous towards him as well. Now, to the older brother, Vitaly, 44, just 2 losses. And he lost both of those on injuries. His shoulder had to stop a fight one time. He lost, and cuts. And both times he was ahead on the cards, but he couldn't continue, so he got the loss, right? So he really could have been undefeated. He was clearly the better of the 2 brothers, right? And far more underrated of the 2 brothers. Vitaly was the more aggressive and rugged fighter. His only 2 losses were on cuts, injuries, a cuts and a shoulder, right? And the second one was Lennox Lewis, and everybody thought we was going to get the rematch because Vitaly was ahead at the time of the stoppage, but Lennox retired after the fight. And the shoulder injury was against Chris Murray. And he went years, Vitaly went years at the end of his career, not even losing a round. He had one of the best knockout percentages in the history of the heavyweight division. And if he was an American fighter, he would have been written about as one of the greatest of all time. Vitaly. Okay, and finally, Juan Manuel Marquez, as far as underrated, Juan Manuel Marquez. Yeah. And Juan Manuel was one of the greatest fighters of his era, okay? He was consistently underrated throughout his career and ducked early in his career. He didn't get his first title shot until he was a pro for 6 years. Nowadays, they're getting him in 6 fights, right? Well, Morrell didn't get his for 6 years. First title shot. Andy Cruz just fought for the title this weekend after 6 fights, okay? And after Warren Morrell lost his first attempt against Freddie Norwood for the title, he waited another 4 years before he got another shot. That's 2 title shots in 10 years for an all-time great first ballot Hall of Famer. Now let's compare that to a fighter like Michael Katsidis, a title challenger who Marquez dispatched in 9 rounds in 2010. Katsidis went directly from that loss to Marquez to a title shot against Robert Guerrero. Katsidis lost that fight. Then he beat a journeyman and immediately got another title shot against Ricky Burns. Meanwhile, Marquez got 2 title shots in 10 years. This guy he beat got 2 in like 3 fights, right? Now, nothing against Katsidis, but yeah, Marquez probably should have had that title shot that he got. And Dinamita was underrated for a long time and still is. Now let's talk about some of the overrated fighters. Overrated now. Okay. Nothing against these fighters. They're just overrated, that's all. They just overrated. Ain't my fault they're overrated. But we'll see if anybody agree. I think it's like 10 of them. Perfect timing, 318. Okay, here we go. Let's look at them. These overrated fighters. 10 overrated boxers. 10 of the most overrated boxers of all time, as a matter of fact. Okay, let's see. Here we go. All right. Yeah, that's 3 of them right there. I think that's good. Chris Eubank, AJ, and Deontay Wilder. I don't hear the right thing. Okay. I got to go out and come back in. We're going to get him in 30 seconds. Some of the most overrated fighters in boxing history. Okay. Ranked. It's actually 20, but we're only going to talk about 10. We're going to name 10 of them, and then we're going to go into detail about 10 of them, so we can get some link time. Now, this is overrated. Now, we did the underrated. These are the overrated guys. Might find a couple women boxers in there. Who knows? Shakur and Teofimo this weekend. I think Keyshawn and Jermaine Ortiz might be the fight of the night. Of all the 3 big cards, we got Murzaliyev, Xander, and Shakur and Teofimo. All those 3 cards, Keyshawn and Jermaine Ortiz might be the fight of the weekend. Okay, here we go. We got it coming up. I couldn't see the light was on. That glare. Yeah, that Chris Eubank, AJ, and Wilder, those are 3 overrated fighters. Now, the sport of boxing has always been a sport where reputation and reality don't always align. Hype machines, promotional narratives, and carefully curated records can elevate fighters to legendary status before they truly earned it. Now, even though greatness in the squared circle is typically measured by championship reigns, quality of opposition, and defining victories, some boxers have managed to cultivate reputations that far exceed their actual accomplishments inside the ropes. So let's look at them now. Now, the first 10, we're just going to name them. Then we're going to look at the other ones. Gilberto Ramirez, these are overrated fighters. Adrian Granados, Danny Garcia, Dillian White, Andy Ruiz Jr., Kid Galahad, Adrian Diakonyu, Jermaine Taylor, Nikolai Valuev, Lucian Butte. Now let's talk about some of them. We got 10 of the most overrated fighters in boxing history. Number 10, Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua. Yeah, he did what he should have did to Jake Paul. If he didn't do that, it was something wrong with him. If he didn't blast him out of there. Okay, let's talk about AJ. Why is AJ overrated? Glad y'all asked. Let's talk about it. Now, the British heavyweight has undoubtedly achieved remarkable success, capturing unified world titles and headlining stadium shows that have broken box office records over there in Great Britain. But Joshua's standing as an all-time great has been questioned following decisive defeats to Andy Ruiz Jr., Alexander Usyk twice, and Daniel Dubois. Now, his career is impressive on paper, but it lacks truly elite wins over prime opposition. Wins against Vladimir Klitschko and Joseph Parker certainly carry some weight. But Klitschko was 41 years old at the time AJ beat him. And he could have easily lost that fight. Yeah, AJ could have easily have lost it. And Klitschko was 41. AJ's technical limitations have been repeatedly exposed at the highest level, okay? With questions persisting about his chin, stamina, and ability to adapt mid-fight. AJ's promotional machine, Matchroom Boxing, led by Eddie Hearn, has been extraordinarily effective at maintaining his marketability despite these setbacks, which is perhaps why AJ is considered overrated relative to his current place in heavyweight boxing. AJ is overrated. Number 9, Billy Joe Saunders. These are some of the most overrated fighters in boxing. Billy Joe Saunders. The Hatfield Southpaw possessed undeniable skill and slick movement, capturing titles at middleweight and super middleweight. But Saunders' career is defined more by unfulfilled potential than genuine elite level accomplishments. His best wins came against solid but unspectacular opposition like Chris Eubank Jr. and David Lemieux, as he consistently avoided the most dangerous fights available to him, most notably Gennady Golovkin. When he finally stepped up against Canelo Alvarez, Saunders was thoroughly outclassed and retired on his stool with a fractured eye socket. His ability was often praised in the British media, creating a perception of greatness that his actual achievements never quite justified. The constant talk of what Saunders could do, coupled with a string of issues with the law, always seemed to overshadow what he actually did. And his reluctance to consistently face top-tier opposition meant his legacy remains one of wasted talent rather than concrete accomplishments. Billy Joe Saunders makes it. Got some former ones. Jeff Lacey, Overrated. Y'all remember Jeff? Overrated. Jeff Lacy. Talk about Jeff. The Florida-born super middleweight was built up as an unstoppable force in the mid-2000s, with him being billed as the next great American champion. Lacy's powerful style and impressive stoppage victories over middling opposition created genuine buzz, but his reputation came crashing down spectacularly when he faced Joe Calzaghe in 2006. The Welshman delivered a masterclass, outboxing and outworking Lacy over 12 one-sided rounds that exposed the American's limitations. It became painfully clear that Lacy had been carefully matched against opponents designed to make him look devastating rather than truly testing his skills. After the Calzaghe defeat, his first as a pro, Lacy was never the same fighter, going the rest of his career with a record of 6 wins and 5 losses. His career serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of believing promotional hype over substance. And this is why Lacy is viewed as significantly overrated, given the gulf between his perceived invincibility and actual ability. Jeff Lacy makes the overrated list. Next overrated fighter, the fight coming up. Ryan Garcia, overrated. Ryan Garcia. Okay. King Rye. King Rye. Okay. Now, as opposed to the likes of Jake Paul and KSI, Ryan Garcia is an actual professional boxer, as well as an influencer. But that doesn't mean he's exempt from questions over his achievements, matching his celebrity status. Garcia possesses genuine hand speed and power, evidenced by his victory over Devin Haney. Though that win has been overshadowed by his subsequent positive drug tests, and the victory being changed to a no contest. Prior to that, his reputation was largely built on solid but unspectacular opposition, with his most notable performance being a victory over Luke Campbell for the vacant WBC interim lightweight title. Garcia's promotional efforts, fueled by millions of Instagram and TikTok followers, have created a level of fame that arguably exceeds his in-ring accomplishments, something seen far too often today. Okay? Far too often in boxing today. Ryan's mental health struggles and erratic behavior outside the ring have added to the circus surrounding him. While undeniably talented, the gap between Garcia's celebrity status and his actual position in the lightweight hierarchy makes him a prime candidate for many fans' list of overrated boxers. Okay? Well, 140 now, hit it to 147. But same thing. I got Barrios taking him out. Okay, Barrios might stop him. Okay, next. I don't know, Ryan might win. But again, Barrios, it ain't like no top tier level fighter. It's Mario Barrios. So that still keeps him overrated to me, beating Barrios. And he might not do it. Nothing against Ryan, but he's just overrated. Okay, Kelly Pavlik. That's Kelly on the left. Kelly Pavlik. Now, the Ghost, that's what they called him. Okay? The Ghost endured a meteoric rise in the late 2000s, demolishing Jermaine Taylor twice to capture the middleweight crown and becoming the poster boy for American boxing. Pavlik's aggressive front foot forward style and devastating power made him must-watch TV, but his reign at the top was remarkably short-lived when he stepped up against all-time great Bernard Hopkins. The 43-year-old B-Hop schooled Pavlik over 12 rounds, exposing his technical deficiencies in the non-title fight. Pavlik ended up losing his belt 2 years later to Sergio Martinez, further cementing his fall from grace. Personal struggles with alcohol derailed what remained of his career. But even at his peak, Pavlik's reputation as an all-time middleweight great was built more on his explosive knockouts of Taylor than a sustained period of dominance against elite opposition. His brief time at the top and limited number of high-quality victories place him firmly as overrated. Kelly Pavlik. Number 5 on the overrated list now. David Haye. Overrated. David Haye. Okay. The Haymaker talked a spectacular game and possessed genuine one-punch knockout power, but his heavyweight legacy is defined more by what could have been than what actually was. Haye enjoyed success at cruiserweight, becoming undisputed champion, but his move to heavyweight promised fireworks that never quite materialized. Though he defeated the 7-foot Nikolai Valuev to win a heavyweight title, the Russian was well past his prime and wasn't that much in his prime. Okay, and Haye avoided the era's elite opposition for years. When he finally faced Vladimir Klitschko, he was comprehensively outboxed, with his infamous toe injury excuse becoming a punchline. His rivalry with Tony Bellew ended with 2 knockout defeats to Bellew that solidified his status as someone who could sell fights better than win them. Haye's charisma and promotional ability created a perception of greatness that his heavyweight accomplishments never quite justified, particularly given his tendency to withdraw from major fights and his reluctance to face the very best until it was commercially unavoidable. David Haye, underrated list. Couple more. Number 4, Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. Following in his father's legendary footsteps has proven a double-edged sword for Eubank Jr., whose surname has arguably elevated his reputation beyond his in-ring achievement. Despite competing at world level for years, Eubank Jr. has consistently come up short in the fights that matter most. Defeats to Billy Joe Saunders, George Groves, and more recently Conor Benn, exposed his limitations against elite opposition and those who are simply hungrier than he is. And victories have largely come against faded former champions or solid domestic level fighters. His athleticism and physical advantages often allowed him to look impressive against inferior opposition. But his technical deficiencies and questionable ring IQ become glaringly obvious when facing world-class boxers. The constant talk of potential mega fights and his prominent media presence have maintained a perception of relevance that his actual accomplishments do not back up. Eubank Jr. remains a solid world-level fighter, but the gap between how he's perceived and where he actually ranks in his division makes him a prime example of an overrated boxer. Okay, number 3. 3 more to go on the overrated list. Prince Naseem Hamed. Okay, overrated. Now, putting the Prince at number 3 will undoubtedly prove controversial, but the case needs to be heard. Hamed was unquestionably talented, entertaining, and achieved genuine success at featherweight with his unorthodox style and devastating power. But His reputation as an all-time great is built on a relatively thin CV of elite level victories. His most notable fight came against Marco Antonio Barrera, a fight he lost comprehensively, exposing the restrictions of his unorthodox approach against elite opposition. Before that defeat, hold on for a minute, please. Losing to Barrera exposed his restrictions, the restrictions of his unorthodox approach against elite level opposition. Now, before that defeat to Barrera, much of his championship reign was built on defenses against solid but unspectacular European level opposition, which was flashy entrances and knockouts, creating an image that exceeded his actual dominance. Hamed retired a year after the Barrera loss at just 28 years old, leaving us with more questions than answers about how he would have fared in a longer career against the era's other elite featherweights, such as Floyd Mayweather Jr. Hamed's entertainment value and unique style have perhaps elevated his legacy beyond what he truly delivered in the ring, making him an overrated boxer. Number 2 on the overrated list is Deontay Wilder. The Bronx Bomber possesses the most devastating right hand in heavyweight history, one of them anyway, but his overall boxing ability has been significantly overrated by some. Wilder held the WBC heavyweight title for 5 years, but his reign was characterized by carefully selected opposition. The Alabama native lacked much in the way of technical development. His defensive deficiencies, limited boxing fundamentals, and over-reliance on his power were ruthlessly exposed by Tyson Fury across 3 fights, with the latter 2 ending in stoppages for Wilder, against Wilder. Beyond Fury, Wilder's championship reign lacked high-level victories, with Luis Ortiz representing his best win. What was Luis Ortiz about? Almost older than me, right? And when he fought Wilder, he was damn near in his 70s. No, he wasn't that old, but he was old. And that was his best opponent before Fury, Luis Ortiz. Wilder's pro debut came remarkably late due to a thin amateur background, yet he was fast-tracked to a title shot after fighting a small handful of well-known boxers. American promotional efforts positioned him as the planet's most feared puncher. But when tested by genuine world-class opposition, his technical limitations became painfully apparent. His power was undeniable, but it masked fundamental boxing deficiencies that will prevent him from being considered among the heavyweight greats, making him very overrated. And finally, number 1 on the overrated list is this guy, Adrian A.B. Broner. Okay, let me tell you why. Right here. I'm not just gonna call a man overrated. I'm gonna tell you why. Topping the list is the problem. A fighter whose talent was undeniable, but whose achievements never came close to matching the hype. AB was marketed as the heir to Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s throne, adopting his style, mannerisms, and even his about billions persona. AB captured world titles in 4 weight classes by the time he was 24 years old, which sounds impressive until you examine the level of opposition. AB's championship reigns were brief and built on victories over faded veterans and domestic level fighters rather than elite opposition. Every time he stepped up against a world-class competitor, Marcos Maidana, Shawn Porter, Mikey Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, he was outclassed every time, okay? Every time, not some of the times. Marcos Maidana, Shawn Porter, Mikey Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, AB was outclassed every time, exposing a massive gap between his self-perception and his true ability. His behavior outside the ring, combined with constant proclamations of greatness, despite repeatedly falling short, created a perfect storm of overrated status as well as utter delusion. AB's career serves as the ultimate cautionary tale about believing your own hype, which is precisely why Adrian Broner ended up at the very top of the overrated ranking. There you have it, the overrated crew. Okay, yeah. Yeah, every time AB went up against Elite, he lost. Every time. Okay? Manny, Shawn Porter, Mikey, Maidana. So yeah, the hype outweighed the results. Don't believe the hype. Yeah, AB was definitely overrated. Nothing against him, but I just told you the facts. Can we read it again? No. I just told you all the facts. He was overrated. Now the talent was there. His talent wasn't overrated. His accomplishments were. The talent was not overrated. Very talented boxer. All the potential was there for AB. But his accomplishments, he never reached the hype. And one time his trainer told him, I remember in the corner, I forget which fight it was. It might have been the Maidana fight. His trainer, AB called himself the problem. And his trainer said, the only problem is getting you to let your hands go. His trainer told him that. Anybody remember that? That's what his trainer told him. The only problem was getting people. Well, it was after Maidana because that's when that problem came up with the hand. But it was some big name. It might have been Manny because Manny was after Maidana. His trainer said, the problem is getting you to let your hands go. Yeah. Yep, the heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather Jr. But it didn't work out. Okay. Let's get about 15 minutes of link time if anybody cares to. It always end up being like 2 hours. Okay, here we go. Let's see. How's everybody on this hump day afternoon? Man, we got all this snow piled up out there, not melting because it's like single-digit temperatures. So the snow is hard as rock, and they talking about another worse blizzard this weekend, man. How about another one? This snow here is not even going to be going anywhere. Not one bit of it has melted. Wow. And these people down here in Maryland don't know how to slow down. The road's actually not that bad though, but yeah. Like you go places, some of the little side streets, like going into a shopping centers and places, not the best. But they still go flying in there, man. Slow down. You got to speed the store right there where you're going to. Don't hit me. Well, let me get this link in here. Okay. Yeah, another blizzard this weekend though. The northeast part of the country. And Maryland can't handle snow. Up here, everything just stops. 2 inches. And just imagine what's out there now. Everything just stops. Mhm. Yep, everything just stops. I move out there to California where T Hill at. Ain't got to worry about no snow and stuff. 80 degrees, sunshine year round. Mhm. There's the link. All right. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the WBC, World Boxing Council. Yup. Friday is the life and career of Frank Bruno. Big Frank, British fighter. Frank finally did get a title though. Yeah, but took him a while. Yup. Big Frank Bruno. And he fought Mike Tyson when he was Iron Mike Tyson then. Yeah. Thank you. Let me see. Just Do Boxing coming up next in these YouTube streets. That balanced, unbiased boxing talk. Everybody gets to Just Do. At Just Do Boxing. Everybody. Yeah. And wow. This is hump day. We on the downhill towards Shakur and Teofimo. I got Shakur. 12 round. Good fight though. Teofimo is a good fighter. I like that Keyshawn and Jermaine Ortiz fight. Yeah. I like that one. And Carlos Adames. I think Shushu on there too, right? On that card. Yeah. Xander. You find Arnie's favorite fighter. Xander Zayas. On the card. His fellow Puerto Rican citizen. You're boxing Arnie Levenself from Xander. But Xander's going to unify. Well, boots and verbs and all of that. Xander's going for his second title. Younger than both of them, too. Xander ain't messing around. And it's down there in Puerto Rico. Arnie said he lives near there, too, but he said he wasn't going. He's going to call it from home. Sometimes that's better than going, you know? Chill at the crib and watch. You got a whole bunch of people hollering and carrying on, fights breaking out and stuff. Yeah, sometimes it's better to chill at the crib. Go right down the hallway to the bathroom, you know, and be right back watching. You go to the bathroom at the venue and come back to fight over with. Oh yeah. I think somebody said that the Xander card and the Shakur Teofimo card is at the same time. But the main events might not work out to be, you know, at exactly the same time. So yeah. But you got to get the double screen. I remember in the old days, back in the 70s, we had a big floor model. It was like a big dresser, the floor model. It wasn't those little, what they call those little thin screens. It had a big old TV like a dresser. And something like that happened. You just get the little TV and put it on top of the big one and watch both of the fights. Yeah. You had a little TV on top of the floor model. Wasn't no split screen. Technology then. That was split screen though. Put the little one on top of the big one. Mike Rim, remember? Big old floor model. You move it take like 5 people to move that bad boy. You can take these TVs now and just take it on out to the truck by yourself. But not them floor models. You better call the boys up, help you move them. But you had the split screen, put the little one on top of the big one. Yep. And watch both of them. I don't see Frank Bruno on here. He fought Mike. I know he did. Oh. Let's see. I was trying to see exactly when that fight was. 84. No. Do I have Mike Tyson? Oh, I got his amateur career. What's wrong with me? No wonder. Yeah. It said his career ended in 84. That was an amateur career, yeah. Okay, here we go, Phil. I'm trying to find Frank Bruno when that fight was. Lennox Lewis. Yeah. Oh, that was after Buster, 1996. He didn't fight Frank till 1996? Wow. I was thinking that fight was before that, man. Okay, yeah, he fought Frank twice. Yeah, I knew the first one was before Buster, 89. I knew that. I forgot all about the second one, yeah. He was still Iron Mike when he fought Frank the first time, yeah. Frank didn't do bad. I mean, he got knocked out, TKO, but yeah, he was doing okay for a minute. Yeah. I mean, Mike was knocking people out in 30 seconds and stuff. Then Frank was the fight right after the 91-second Michael Spinks fight. So Frank last 5 rounds, he did good, right? Mike was getting him up out of there. He got Marvis Frazier out of there in 30 seconds. So 5 rounds wasn't bad. Larry last 4. But like T. Hill said, if Larry had wouldn't have got caught in them ropes, history might be different. Because he had Mike lined up for that right hand and got caught in the ropes. And it was all downhill from Larry after that. Yeah, man, Larry had that right hand lined up and went to swing and it never happened. Remember that Larry's hand got caught in the damn ropes, man. He might have got Mike out of there with that punch. I remember that. I watched that recently. And Mike was coming in for the kill, wide open. Remember T.O.? And Larry had him lined up and his hand got caught in the ropes, man. And then that was it. Oh, yeah. Wouldn't have got the Buster Douglas situation because Larry would have then took the title from Mike. Wouldn't that have been something? If only that hand hadn't got caught in the ropes. Okay, so we're going to get ready to make the move to just do boxing now. And okay, nobody want to talk today. That's okay. I'm gone. All right. B3 Picks TV. Mike Grimm, Crush the Legend, Bruce Gas Boxing Jazz and more. Azim Shabazz, Thomas Hill, Al Booker, Mike Mazik, and Miss Cass. Appreciate everybody for stopping through. WBC tomorrow. We're going to talk about the history of the WBC. Some of the big fights they've had over the years, some champions that they held the belt, presidents, all about the WBC, the World Boxing Council. Current president, Mauricio. Yeah. Mauricio's father had it too, Jose. Jose was president for a long time, up to his death. Mauricio learned all the trade right at his knee. And Mauricio is terrible. Mauricio in it for the money. There's Mauricio. How did Conor Benn get ranked number 1? Mauricio get ranked in the top 10 or number 1 or something. Mauricio said because he fought Chris Eubank. But that was at like 160, Mauricio. What they got to do with 147? And then the guy asked him how did Ron Garcia get a title shot? He didn't even answer that question. He started talking about something else. Mauricio wanted to say because I said he'd get the title shot. He just didn't answer. Get my sanctioning, but I do what I want to. It might as well have said that because that's how it is. But I appreciate everybody. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another episode. World Boxing Council. I don't even know how to go off right. I don't know what happened. But anyway, if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story bringing you all that boxing history. Everybody have a great afternoon. Appreciate y'all 1 million%. This is Cass Sports, the Box Story. I'm out.